YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. So let's go into another video. So I'm going to talk about how your enemies are pawns, literally. So when I say pawns, I'm talking about, like, say for example, it's like a chessboard, right? But the pawns have a purpose, right? You might have seen in your life, like, you could have had enemies and you could have been like, how's there always one around or whatever, or some around or whatever? It's because they're pawns. So life is like kind of like a chessboard, especially if you're anointed into like a place of power. Like if you're like a king or a queen, like God has like made you like a leader, so you're gonna be in a place of power, and a lot of power works like a chessboard, right? There's gonna be enemies. So if the enemies in your life are pawns, and what happens to pawns in the chessboard? Most of the time they get decimated, right? They get decimated. They have a little bit of power, but they get devoured, right? So let's just get into this video. So when I say they're pawns, I mean whenever you're around an enemy, they don't realize that they're benefiting you. But at the same time though, the only way they could benefit you is if you develop your own strength too. So they're gonna poke at your weaknesses. This is what the enemy does. Your enemies want to destroy you, so they hate you, but they don't realize that they're pawns, right? They don't realize that they're gonna strengthen you because you're anointed, right? So you have a lot of power. So the things that they poke at you, it's only gonna, like, that venom is only gonna affect you up until that part strengthens, right? So if there's like a point of weakness that you have in like your confidence about something, that venom is gonna affect you every time up until you have full confidence in it. Then it doesn't, right? And when I say that your enemies are pawns, is that you just play chess with them, right? This is all it is. This is just the reality of life. This is what I've seen. It's just a chessboard, right? This is why it's important to get your emotions under control. So when an enemy's like, you need to humble yourself, you need to do this, right? Realize the purpose that they're doing. They're not doing it like you really need to humble yourself. They're doing it to see if you do it, if you get insecure about it, right? They want to see it. That's what they want, because they poke at that. They poke at that. That's why I say they're a pawn, because they don't realize that they're a pawn at the same time. So by how I mean that they're a pawn is that the things that they do, you're literally like hearing them speak and like listen and everything, and you're getting stronger, right? You're getting stronger. Like they're being used to strengthen you pretty much, so they don't even know it. So and at the same time, so you could clap back as well. So with the enemy, it's just a chess piece, right? So it's just like a conversation or whatever. So enemy says you need to humble yourself. You could just play with them and be like, nah, I'm not good at humbling myself. Like, I got a God complex. My ego's way too high, right? Just to see what they say. And they'll be like, oh, no, or whatever. I'll be like, yeah, but like, I just have a God complex. Like, it's a bad thing or whatever. You'd be like, you want to help me with it or something with the enemy, you know? Because it's a game pretty much, right? You use them as a pawn. Use them in the palm of your hand. This is just how it is, right? So there's plenty of different like tactics with it, right? With the enemy. So what I've seen with the enemy, so if an enemy hits you on like your humility or whatever, clap back with the enemy and tell them how great they are. Be like, you inspire me. Like, you're such a great person. Like, how do I become like you? They don't realize that, like, for the most part, what I've seen, the enemy gets a big head about this, right? And then you can spot their hypocrisy right there. They don't realize it though. This is why I say that they're a pawn, because they get a big head and they start to actually feel better than you. So they tell you to humble yourself, but then they feel better about you. But they don't realize it though. But when they do realize it, they start fuming, right? Because you got them pretty much. So like, it's like a manipulation game or something. Because like it has to be a manipulation game, because you can't tell an enemy the truth about things, because the enemy hates everything about you. They want to destroy, so you just play games with them. So there's a lot of times to where like you could play with them. You could act like you're down and be like, oh, I'm insecure, I feel down, I'm depressed, like I'm not succeeding anything. They get happy about it or whatever. They try to give you like wisdom or whatever, right? Because they think that they're better than you or whatever. And then you could tell them, be like, you're such a smart person, right? Just play with them back. Be like, you're such a smart person. I can't believe you're so humble about it, right? Because like they don't really realize that they're kind of unaware about it. That's why I say that they're pawns. So you could play with them back. You could catch their hypocrisy, and they have a big head. You could tell them too, be like, oh, I didn't know you're arrogant too or something, because they're so sensitive. I'm telling you, most enemies I've seen, they're so sensitive. They're like literal like chaff through the wind or whatever. They just blow away. They're so sensitive. That's why they project a lot on you. They could call you sensitive or something, but they're so sensitive. I'm like, that's why you could decimate them. They're a pawn pretty much. Like I said, chaff to the wind. They blow away pretty much. That's why you don't need to take them seriously. But the only way you don't take them seriously is when you develop your actual confidence and you see clearly, right? They're not an actual threat. They're only a threat to where your weaknesses aren't strengthened yet, so they attack these weaknesses. But once they're not, they're nothing, right? They're just something to use pretty much. And you can use the enemy as a pawn plenty of times, like for some sort of benefit. Maybe you need, maybe your enemy has another enemy that you know or whatever, but you know that person. You can use that enemy for some specific purpose pretty much, right? You tell them like, hey, so yeah, that person that you don't like, I heard they did this and this and that, you should go tell them about this and this and that. You could literally just move the chess pieces around with them. They don't realize it though, because who I'm talking to, you're most likely a king or a queen. So in a chessboard, the king and the queen are strong, especially the queen. So usually the king is protected. The queen is what decimates everything. The queen moves a lot, right? So, but that's actual chess. Life is similar, right? Like kings and queens and pawns and everything. So, but your enemies are pawns in the chessboard, right? So it's just to outmaneuver them. That's all it is. It's not a game to where it's not a normal conversation. That's the unfortunate thing. So many of you have wanted it to be because of your heart, but it's not a normal conversation. When you try to have a normal conversation, it just hurts you. So that's when you realize it. You have to treat him as a pawn, right? So you can only treat him like this when you get your emotions under control and realize what it is. It's just a chess game, right? It's just a mental game. It's just the enemy's just trying to see where you're at or whatever, and you're trying to see where the enemy's at pretty much. You're learning from the enemy is learning from you. So you can mess with the enemy too, because a lot of times an enemy is really confident about their criticisms or whatever. So you could act like it affects you too. You could always act. So you could be like, oh, that does affect me or whatever, and see how they act. And then they think that they got you or whatever, and then you could see, and then you could play with it more too. You could keep playing it with more. You could keep capping on them, right? It's like a manipulation game. So you could deceive the enemy. So you're like a snake eater, right? The enemy's a snake. You eat the snake, like a king cobra, right? King cobras eat snakes. So a king cobra's nature is normally docile, or I guess calm. Like they don't strike first or hurt. They only strike when something bothers them, right? So you're kind of like a king cobra. So the enemy tries to strike. That's when you eat the enemy, right? So you're a snake eater, literally. So I don't know who I'm speaking to, but you eat snakes. This is what you do to the enemy. You eat that snake. So the way to decimate your enemies is just a mind game, right? It's just to mess with them so they start to get furious because they think they're intelligent. They think their discernment's really high, and then they go, wait, they got me or something like that. I was totally wrong. They were just messing with me or whatever. And then they get furious about it. And then they'll try to attack you and be like, you were lying or whatever. They have because the enemy's smart. They know what to do. But you could be like, what do you mean I was lying? Or something like that. That's when you play with them. You could be like, no, I wasn't lying. I was serious. So that it messes with their head, right? I was serious. I was telling you the truth. I was being honest and everything, completely honest. So then they don't know. They're like confused about it. That's when you ate the enemy pretty much. Once you break the enemy like that to where they're completely confused pretty much, they don't know what to do, you ate them. You got them. The pawn got decimated pretty much because they lost their self-confidence, right? They lost to you. And yeah, sometimes a lot of people see it as like a wicked game, but it's not wicked. It's just a chess game. It's just how it is, right? That's why I always like to say Machiavellianism isn't necessarily good nor evil. It just is what it is. It's how it works. There's no other way it works, right? Like it just is. It has to happen. Like you can't ignore it. You can't really ignore an enemy if they're around you, because if you ignore them, they're not going to ignore you, right? They're still going to study you. They're still going to speak to you. They're still going to try to like observe you and everything. So if you ignore the enemy, they're not ignoring you. So you just play with the enemy, right? Treat him as like a friend, pretty much, right? It's like the Joker and Batman, pretty much, right? They both benefit each other in a way, but they're enemies. They're complete enemies, right? So I'm only speaking to people who are in these situations, like big dogs, like successful people, chosen ones. You know, you got a purpose. Maybe you're all business owners. You're just a big type of person. You're a person who's been attacked a lot. You had a lot of enemies and everything. You had all these things going on, and enemies hurt. Like when you're not solidified in your confidence, the venom hits you. The venom could kill you too. That's what I'm saying. They're dangerous, but they're only dangerous when you don't know yourself, right? When you know yourself and what it is, and when you get your emotions under control, they're not dangerous at all. They end up being pawns in the palm of your hand, your footstool, pretty much, right? They become your footstool. And you realize, oh, this enemy I could use for my own benefit. They could strengthen me. So you could ask them questions, be like about a weakness that you have. Be like, hey, how do you feel about like confidence about like, you know, public speaking or something like that? And the enemy's gonna say something like, oh yeah, with public speaking or whatever, you're like, it's easy. You should just be able to do it. And they'll tell you like, oh, you probably can't do it because you're anxious all the time or something. And you could just play with them. Be like, yeah, I am anxious. Can you help me? Right? And then that's when they think they have power over you. They'll be like, yeah, I would help you, but like they'll try to have the enemy wants power over you. So if they want to help you, they'll do it in a way where like you kind of have to serve them or something in a way. So just play with the enemy, right? Just expose the enemy. That's how you expose them, when you act. When you agree with their beliefs, so you agree that you're arrogant, and be like, how do I fix my arrogance, man? Let me get your advice. Act like you're looking at the enemy highly, because they feel good about themselves, right? They think they got you. They're like, yes, I'm more powerful, I'm better than they are. And you can just be like, huh, you're a really smart person. But the whole time you see him as a pawn. You see him as nothing. You see everything that they're saying is something you already know. You've been known and everything, and like it's something that it's easy to understand. To them, they think they're so intelligent, pretty much. Like, they legit think they're so intelligent that they could become your teacher or something, right? So the enemy wants power over you to like become your teacher. It's funny, right? But like, it's funny to play into their hand too. Be like, yeah, you are a teacher. Like, why don't you like do this? Like, why don't you teach me these things? And they'll be like, oh yeah, I'll teach you this or whatever. But their teaching is venom, right? Don't actually let them teach you. But it's funny to make them feel good about themselves, because you expose their arrogance. You expose that they want power over you. You expose that they think they're better than you. You expose how happy they feel for you to admit their beliefs or whatever, right? They're like, yes, my criticisms are right? They look so lame, like squares, and you're just watching them like acting as if like they're helping you, and like they have a lot of things, and they feel so good about themselves, right? So when you make the enemy feel good about themselves, you do not realize that you got them, because they feel so good about themselves, but you were playing with them. You weren't serious about it, so they look stupid, right? The thing that they feel good about themselves is something you've been known, and something that you're skilled at, something that you don't need to learn or whatever. So it's like they got their how do I explain it? It's like they put on their cape or whatever, and they're like, yes, I'm the best, I'm better, I'm smarter, I'm better than them. Like, they look so lame, but it's so funny to see. They don't realize that they exposed themselves right there, right, for who they are. That they're the arrogant one. They're the one that needs humbling, right? It's so funny, I'm telling you. You realize their projections got exposed. That's how you expose them, right? So it's a manipulation game. It sharpens your skills too, because you can't say the truth to an enemy. You say the truth to an enemy, you're dead pretty much. So I'll get more into this topic or whatever. So yeah, this comes from Machiavellianism, and Machiavellianism isn't evil. It just is what it is, right? The enemy is a means to an end. That's what they are. They're not your friend, right? They're not someone you're gonna have a relationship with for a long time. They're there as a pawn. They're there to be used, pretty much, to benefit you. That's just what they are, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, don't forget to comment and subscribe if you're not subscribed. God bless you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.